The legendary Night Devil blade instantly cut into the almost melted neck, scorched by the dragon's breath. Almost before the other hunters could react, Lin's left hand suddenly opened a huge mouth, swelling to the size of several people. It swiftly engulfed another hunter in one gulp. Little one complained, "That's mine, delicious," sob. Lefty immediately shook its head, decisively closed its mouth, and then its entire arm twisted into a long blade. Lin exclaimed, "You can transform into a sword too." Lefty wildly danced its body, leaving deep wounds on the hunters. The hunters I ate before have been digested, and I assimilated some of what they could use. Also, your physique suddenly became much stronger, so there are more things I can transform now. The flexible blade formed by Lefty, measuring over 10 meters, restrained the hunters like slicing dumplings. Lin was amazed but not outdone. Using the flesh catastrophe skill, he bit the head of a hunter, releasing a torrent of dragon breath. Indeed, his left hand was incredible. It had such amazing features. This made him feel like he was playing a game of slaughtering prototypes. Since weapons can change, can't other things change too? Enough said. If there's a chance, I'll definitely explore Lefty's flexibility and potential thoroughly. Lin suddenly became excited. In the next moment, with Little One joining, the hunters, already almost powerless under the dragon's breath, became a feast for Little One alone. And Lin took advantage of this opportunity to gain a wave of combat ability and firearms proficiency. That damn human. The Heart Devourer looked angrily at the dark screen from the corridor. His entire being was almost consumed by fury. The surveillance along the corridor had been completely destroyed by the fiery tongues just now. Still, the constant destruction updates from the hunter unit's demise continued to remind him that the guy had broken through their defenses and entered the base. But he had no time to care about that guy, because the two headhunters on the ground had almost finished devouring the hanging tower. They could join the battle at any moment, but it was almost done. The data that needed to be transferred had already been safely moved. This place was almost useless, since you're so eager to break in. Then I'll let you stay here forever. The Heart Devourer's expression was ferocious. He quickly connected his consciousness to the control center of the entire base. Prepare to activate the self-destruct sequence. Authorization. Highest authorization successful. Command sent. Self-destruct sequence activating. Current countdown, 10 minutes. All personnel, please evacuate urgently. A piercing alarm sounded throughout the base. All the anxious members inside heard the exploding synthetic sound above their heads. All members showed expressions of fear and shock. Self-destruct. Are you kidding? We haven't evacuated yet. We haven't evacuated. Quick, quick, go to the teleportation hall. Hurry, many members shouted. At this time, they no longer cared whether it was against orders. If the self-destruct sequence activated, they would all perish in the ensuing inferno along with the entire base. In the teleportation hall, the Heart Devourer, accompanied by dozens of high-ranking members of the Demon Association, quickly pushed open the door and with a gloomy gaze approached the teleportation device. Is the teleportation location set? The coordinates are established, and most of the valuable data has been transmitted. We can depart at any time. Good. Activate the teleportation device. Yes. The huge machinery in the hall immediately rumbled to life. Blinding blue light gathered in the center of the hall, forming a slowly converging blue screen. The teleportation device has been activated. Coordinates established. Teleportation gate forming. Countdown 10, 9, 8. The Heart Devourer gritted his teeth, turning his head to stare intently behind him. It won't end so soon, let's see what happens. One day, when the behemoth is born in my hands, all of you will pay for today's events. But just as he finished speaking, the light in the entire hall suddenly flickered violently. Then, a cracking sound. The entire hall instantly dimmed. Then emergency red lights lit up again. Warning, base energy core damaged. Energy efficiency reduced to 3. Teleportation activation failed. The once forming blue screen instantly dimmed and collapsed with a thunderous roar. What's going on? The faces of the dozens of high-ranking members next to the Heart Devourer turned pale. The Heart Devourer himself was shocked, realizing something. He urgently connected his consciousness to the energy supply core deep inside the base. In the monitoring screen of the energy core stack, flickering due to energy loss, the Heart Devourer instantly saw a scene that nearly shattered him. This is. He trembled and stepped back. The Heart Devourer stood there in a daze, his mind blank, unable to utter a word. The silhouette that had burst through the energy core, even more insulting than a dozen strong men stomping on his dignity, was like someone slapping your face over and over. Then, with a wicked smile as they walked away, That feeling. He opened his arms, howling at the sky, tears falling involuntarily from the huge insult. The most despairing thing is that you just activated the self-destruct device of the base, and then the teleportation system malfunctions, trapping you in this exploding base. That kind of feeling. Kill you. I'll kill all of you. The Heart Devourer cried with a trembling voice, because once the self-destruct sequence is activated, there is no authority to turn it off. Because, to prevent enemies from breaking in and disrupting the energy supply, the self-destruct sequence was designed with its own set of power supply measures. And almost in the next moment, with a loud bang, from the southeast direction of the teleportation hall, a root knight riding Little One, shooting wildly, crashed through the sturdy steel, drifting, and came to a stop in the teleportation hall. Found you, haha. Lin, his face covered in blood, smiled slightly, holding the dragon breath arm, riding Little One. In his hand, the dark muzzle of the revolver pointed remotely at the head devourer's head. And behind them, looking from the gaping mouth they had crashed through, you could clearly see a nearly straight line that extended from the outer corridor to here. Straight as an arrow. 3 root-level creatures indeed have the power to destroy us completely. However, you overlooked one thing. You shouldn't have appeared in front of me. Almost in that instant, his pupils turned silvery. Buzz, invisible ripples emanated from his body, and Lin immediately felt his entire brain about to explode with a thunderous roar. Warning. You are subjected to a strong mental shock. Decreased life points. The change happened too quickly, and Lin's eyeballs instantly became bloodshot and swollen, blood streaming down. Everything happened too fast to react. My head. Zio was shocked. She and Lin were connected, and she immediately sensed the excruciating mental pain as if his brain was tearing apart. It was a mental attack. Zio, obviously unfamiliar with such assaults, seemed dazed. At this moment, Lefty had almost no hesitation. She opened her huge mouth and emitted a sharp, ghostly howl. Her entire arm quickly dissolved, turning into thick and pitch-black liquid, falling to the ground. Wow, a baby's cry. The black fluids on the ground struggled and transformed into infants that looked exactly like Lin, mouths opening in eerie cries. Distorted, bizarre, corrupted. If the blood-clad evil spirit were here, it would recognize these terrifying infants as the mutations that appeared in Lin's previous encounter inside the flesh puppet. Almost simultaneously, the heart-devouring demon immediately felt an extremely strong nausea and dizziness. The cries seemed like an extremely malicious curse, a terrifying mental contamination that instantly disturbed his mental fluctuations. He bent over suddenly in pain. The mental shock launched by Lin also experienced a brief interruption under this sudden disturbance. Almost in that instant, Lin opened his bloodshot eyes, raised his revolver abruptly, and pointed it coldly at the heart-devouring demon's forehead. Bang, bang, bang. 3 gunshots. The demon-hunting bullets landed on him, and a massive holy current crackled over his body. Almost simultaneously, Zio's tentacle followed suit. Sharp tentacles pierced his neck, causing him to lose his head. And during the intense brain pain, he rolled over. Looking at his left hand dissolving into countless black fluids, Lin said solemnly, "Lefty, are you okay?" The black fluids began to gather again, crawling up his body, concentrating on his left arm, reforming into his left hand. Lefty looked a bit sluggish. Apparently, the horrifying method she just used consumed a considerable amount of her energy. Lefty spat out a mass of black slime and said, "I'm fine. Just a bit of loss of appetite. I'm afraid I won't be able to eat for a few days." Seeing Lefty dizzy, Lin knew that if she hadn't reacted in time just now, he would probably have suffered a mental explosion, resulting in instant brain death. It truly was a dangerous world. Even with Zio, a root-level creature, safety wasn't guaranteed. "Doctor, just now, what was that?" Lin looked up and said, "Mental attack, a direct assault on the opponent's will and mind. It's undefendable and extremely terrifying." Obviously, Zio wasn't specialized in this field either. She was only half knowledgeable about mental attacks. The guy just now clearly targeted him, knowing that even if he tried to launch a mental attack on Zio, with her root-level consciousness, it would likely have minimal effect. He really wanted to kill himself. In fact, after learning his name from the system's prompt, Lin should have realized that the guy possessed an extremely strong mental power and would likely use psychic methods. If not for Lefty's quick reaction, he might have capsized in the gutter just now. "Is that guy dead?" Lin squinted his eyes and said, "He probably transferred his consciousness at the last moment. This guy probably has more than one body." Because the system didn't prompt the completion of the mission, it meant that the guy was still alive. Without further ado, Lin immediately activated the evil spirit vision and said with a deep smile, "Zio, Zio, let's go. Since he didn't finish me off the first time, there won't be a second chance." At the same time, in the deepest core area of the base, in the depths of a massive container, a faint mechanical synthesis sound could be heard. Consciousness transfer complete. Body number 1 integration complete. Rebooting. Click, click, countless electric sparks exploded within the container. In the next moment, a precise mechanical hand broke through the container's tough outer shell with a clattering sound. A pair of eyes, flickering with red light, faintly lit up. Flesh is weak. Machinery is supreme. A hoarse voice sounded. His entire body was covered in mechanical skeletons, devoid of any flesh. Blood-red electric currents flowed all over his body like blood vessels. The heart-devouring demon walked out hoarsely. This was his number 1 body. Also, apart from the puppet of the hunter god, it was his strongest combat body. Base self-destruct countdown, 4 minutes and 5 seconds. He didn't bother looking for Lin's trouble again. Instead, he quickly moved along the corridor, heading towards a secret passage leading outside the base. A massive skull instantly pierced through the wall in front of him, like a heavy truck, crashing directly into him and sending him flying for dozens of meters. Boom! A loud noise. The steel body of the heart-devouring demon heavily impacted the wall. But he stood up as if unharmed, with a fierce glow in his eyes. The heart-devouring demon almost hesitated and immediately roared towards Lin, launching a more extensive mental shock. The immense mental impact hit the small figure, but it only caused a negligible ripple in the consciousness of the small figure, quickly dissipating. The heart-devouring demon recoiled repeatedly. You bastard." In the small figure's mouth, Lin sat cross-legged, arms crossed, eyes closed. "You shouldn't affect the origin creature, right? Even if your mental power is strong, it won't be stronger than the origin creature, right?" The heart-devouring demon made a hoarse sound of mechanical synthesis and said, "You are indeed a shrewd human, actually thinking of such a way to avoid my mental shock. You've really impressed me, but I still don't understand, why do you have to exterminate us?" Lin smiled, hugging his arms, and said from a distance, "Exterminate? Don't you think that's a bit shameless to say? When you sent flesh puppets to Yaosol Lane to kill me, why didn't you say such things? When you sent hunters to clean me up for the second time, I didn't see you wanting to reason with me. Oh, wrong. I'm just an expendable creature that can be easily disposed of. Your goal is to kill my teacher and my family's little darling. You probably didn't expect that the last one standing in front of you would be a little apprentice from that pharmacy, right?" Lin grinned, revealing his pure white and eerie teeth. The heart-devouring demon's eyes flickered with madness. The countdown was down to the last 2 minutes. Time was running out. No, he must escape from here. He absolutely couldn't let this guy waste any more time. He turned abruptly, at an unimaginable speed, gritting his teeth, heading straight towards the end of the corridor. Small. Lin squinted. "It's time for dinner." Not giving him any chance. In an instant, Small squirmed its tentacles, rushing at the heart-devouring demon at an even faster speed. Boom. A loud noise. The body of the heart-devouring demon was directly crushed by Small's heavy pressure, rolling for dozens of meters in a row. "Dare to bully my Dr. Small." The massive tentacle heavily whipped the heart-devouring demon's body. Countless sparks splattered. Small instantly launched a fierce attack. Numerous tentacles, like machine gun bullets, shot at the heart-devouring demon's mechanical body. The heart-devouring demon roared, stepped back suddenly, and 2 high-temperature long swords extended from his arms. Clang, clang. The dual swords collided with Small's hardened tentacles, exploding countless sparks. For a while, the light in the entire corridor fluctuated, and the clashing sounds reverberated. Damn, damn, damn. The heart-devouring demon roared more fiercely, but he had no way to break free from Small's assault. And the ear-piercing self-destruct alarm became more and more intense. The entire base could be engulfed in flames at any moment. Meanwhile, in Small's mouth, Lin squinted, slowly reaching out his hand, and his gaze fell on the heart-devouring demon. "So, are you a true mechanical creation? Or just for show? Since it's consciousness transfer, you should still be in this body, hiding the filthy flesh, right?" "Of course." Lin squinted. "My lovely patient." Almost in that instant, Lin's outstretched arm suddenly clenched. And almost in that instant, the heart-devouring demon, who was fiercely clashing with Small's tiny tentacles, immediately felt a shock throughout his entire body. A wave after wave of indescribable strange sensations swept through all the major sensors in his brain. Control over his mechanical body began to lag. The visual sensors produced blurry images in his brain. At that moment, he actually felt severe hypoxia and blood vessel blockage in his brain, accompanied by a huge dizziness and nausea, as well as repeated cognitive errors affecting his mental judgment. His mechanical body was instantly thrown out hundreds of meters by Small's tentacle. Brain infarction. He actually exhibited symptoms of brain infarction and brain thrombosis, and a series of complications of malignant brain diseases. What kind of joke is this? What kind of joke is this? He paled, and it was in the next moment that Lin's voice came from Small that was approaching from afar. As I expected, heart-devouring demon, you still can't truly separate your will from material existence, right? After all, you're not a real ghost. This mechanical body of yours is just an empty shell to protect your brain. If you used a true flesh body, I might have no way to deal with you. But your mistake lies in using a mechanical armor in front of me. Through the feedback from the system just now, Lin had already understood the structure of this mechanical body. Beneath the complex mechanical structure, what was hidden was actually a frail brain of flesh. It's like taking your own brain out, then filling it into a machine. Even if your mechanical body is strong, it can't change the fact that your brain is fragile. And his random diagnosis art depended on his own mental power and the strength of the target's constitution. The weaker the target's constitution, the higher the success rate of his activation, and vice versa. If the heart-devouring demon was still in his previous body, the success rate would indeed be low. But for the current brain without a body, the result was unsurprising. Brain infarction, brain thrombosis, parasite, Alzheimer's. No matter what, the heart-devouring demon couldn't believe that he had fallen into such a situation at this time. Cursed, that guy must have used some kind of curse, directly bypassing his mechanical body and affecting his brain. He, who had never been sick before, was instantly given so many illnesses. I can't die here. I am the president of the Mage Association. I still need to complete the thunderous plan. I still need to wash. Hey. He finally screamed in horror. And almost at the same time, the final countdown to the base explosion came from the outside. 10, 9, 8. Lin suddenly raised his head and shouted loudly, "Little, the base is about to explode. Let's go up first." What about him? Lin smiled slightly, raised an eyebrow, and said, "Of course, we'll come back to dig him up later." Countless tentacles leaped suddenly, crashing through the steel structure above, and quickly moved outward. 5, 4, 3. The countdown continued. I will definitely take your life. I must. Fly. I want to fly. Take off. Heh. Psychotic laughter erupted again, and he started laughing foolishly. Almost simultaneously, the countdown ended. Self-destruct device activated. Boom, boom, boom. Countless explosions occurred all over the base, and a roaring blaze instantly engulfed the corridor where the laughing demon was. In the external area, with a head leaping from the huge pit, the ground within a few hundred meters collapsed instantly, and a massive explosion lifted flames high into the sky. Little's massive head landed steadily. A sudden break. Bouncing and jumping, he landed on the edge of the explosion. With the system prompts in his ears, Lin smiled slightly. The shockwaves of the explosion blew against his forehead. He smiled, gazing at the rolling ruins. Finally, it's over. Special skill consumes a large amount of mental power, can briefly reproduce the target's state at a certain point in the past, cannot change the opponent's strength, success rate proportional to the target's resistance level, duration, 1 hour. It seemed to be another domineering skill like his random diagnosis technique. Can reproduce the target's state at a certain point in the past. Does that mean it can turn the target into a fertilized egg? Lin rubbed his chin, considering some special applications. But soon, he dismissed the idea, because if it could only reproduce and not actually influence the opponent's strength at that time, its utility seemed limited. His mind immediately conjured up an image of a fertilized egg chasing after him. His face looked weird. Just then, a massive sound of the ground trembling came from a distance. Titan Skull and Shaman Skull heard the commotion, rushing over. With every jump, it felt like a small mountain crashing onto the ground, making people tremble with fear. It seems, my daughter took care of them all. Shaman Skull let out a terrifying, malicious laugh. Titan Skull chewed on a large amount of mechanical structures and flesh, foul-smelling blood oozing out from between its teeth. It grinned ferociously while chewing, saying, "Sorry, daughter, I ate the giant statue for you." Little said, Dad, you chipped a tooth. Let the doctor replace it for you." An eerie silence spread unbridled in the surroundings. Lin vaguely felt the killing intent behind him. He coughed and said, "Little, did we forget something? Oh, how about we dig up that machine first?" Even though the system had already indicated that the demonic creature was dead, Lin didn't think the mechanical body would be easily destroyed. After all, even with Little's terrifying strength, it failed to crack open the machine's head earlier. Apparently, the defense strength of that machine was definitely on par with the root source. After more than 10 minutes of effort, with Little's help, Lin quickly unearthed the smoking mechanical body from the ruins of the explosion. It was covered in scorch marks, extremely hot, but apart from obvious signs of surface melting, its internal structure was intact. This was an extraordinarily high-intensity mechanical creation. The structure hasn't suffered severe damage, but the brain inside is probably damaged. Lin moved his hands a bit, then took out his indestructible night demon knife and forcefully inserted it into the back of the mechanical creation's head. Turning around, his eyes reflected Little, saying, "Little, hit it again. I'm very interested in that demonic creature's brain." Okay, but before Little could act, Lin was instantly shrouded by two huge shadows. Lin turned around, staring with widened eyes at the two enormous skulls looking down at him coldly. Cold sweat broke out on him. "Is it time to start?" "Ordering my daughter." Titan's skull revealed its terrifying fangs with a creepy smile. "No." Lin stared. "Have you already started?" "Commanding my daughter." Shaman's skull squinted, looking extremely malevolent. "Huh?" Lin was bewildered. "Wait a minute. Something's not right. What are they talking about? Why do I always feel like I don't understand what they're saying?" "Marriage." "What marriage?" "Crack." A loud noise sent all creatures on the ground flying 2 meters into the air. Lin turned around, swallowed a mouthful of saliva, and then saw Little's mother's huge tentacle rising. His own night demon knife had pierced directly into the head of the mechanical creation. The skullcap was pried open. Lin widened his eyes, swallowed a mouthful of saliva, and said, "Thank you, Auntie." Shaman's skull revealed a strange, mysterious smile, opened its mouth, and said, "No need to thank. Almost family, too polite." Lin shivered. For some reason, he vaguely had a terrifying guess. Lin turned around, and he could feel the terrifying gaze stabbing into his back. Still, he tried hard to maintain composure, carefully approaching the mechanical body. After seeing the internal situation of the skull, Lin was momentarily stunned, but his expression quickly returned to seriousness. Just as he had guessed, a brain, a fleshy brain. The menacing brain tissue on top continued to emit hot steam, and the wrinkles remained intact, but the temperature was not very high, indicating that the mechanical body had excellent protective capabilities against the explosion. The true cause of its death was the extensive pathological changes inflicted on the devouring heart demon's brain. The brain, emitting thick slurry with blood streaks, was bubbling out, indicating that it had completely lost its function. An ancient race existing in the dark world, also known as the brain demon. They possess powerful psychic abilities but lack a physical body. Some special devouring heart demons can parasitize within a host, gradually consuming or assimilating the target's brain. The assimilated brain becomes a new consciousness carrier for the devouring heart demon, allowing rapid consciousness transfer among multiple brains. Lin smiled faintly, carefully packaging the brain, and said, "Let's go back and give this to the teacher. I think the teacher will appreciate the gift I'm giving him." On a distant mountain peak, the puppet lady witnessed the entire explosion and the destruction of the colossal statue by the 3 origin-level creatures. She took a deep breath, still shivering despite the current calmness. Her gaze fell on Lin, who stood before the 3 origin creatures, focusing on his smiling face. "Is he Bloodsaw's apprentice?" she muttered, her eyes showing excitement. "He's outstanding. Much better than that Bloodsaw guy." She felt a bit moved. After all, a young and exceptionally capable being like him was rare, even in this dark world. And most importantly, he was a human. A human who could shine brightly in the dark world was a perfect plus. She glanced at Bloodsaw still bubbling and unconscious on the side. Suddenly, she lost interest in the eccentric guy. Back then, if she hadn't struggled to find a somewhat normal humanoid creature, she wouldn't have allowed this guy, who knows nothing about charm, to help her lift the blood curse on her. She slowly developed some thoughts. Initially, she intended to let Bloodsaw help her daughters remove the curse. But now, her thoughts had changed. If she could deceive his outstanding disciple to the puppet mansion, then, by using some special means, let him get along well with her daughters, perhaps, just like back then with Bloodsaw, they could slowly develop feelings. By then, if everything went smoothly, she wouldn't have to watch her daughters suffer within the curse of puppets. She silently made up her mind, her expression becoming serious. Then she glanced at the still Bloodsaw. Snap. She kicked him off the cliff. Useless trash. Spitting for over half an hour, what a waste of food. In the field of vision, for a while, the entire dark world was shaken by this sudden influx of information. Despite being secluded, the Devil Association was still a powerful force in this dark world. Their unique blend of powerful machinery and flesh creations had always been the direction pursued by many fanatical beings. And now, such a powerful force was actually destroyed. Bounty hunters. Unbelievable. How did the Devil Association provoke those three monsters? If it's the bounty hunters, it's not surprising. The taboo of the origin level in this world. No matter how strong you are, if you provoke them, you're destined to die. Poor Devil Association. Another organization annihilated by the hands of origin level beings. For a while, all major regional channels were discussing this event. The footage of the announcers' battle quickly spread across the dark world. However, for some reason, in all the footage shown by the announcers, the face of the humanoid creature accompanying the three bounty hunters was deliberately blurred. Who is that humanoid creature with the bounty hunters? Could it be a king from some place? How could he travel with those three bounty hunters? I guess it should be the king of the unicorn evil spirits. Besides that existence, who else could maintain a good relationship with these three bounty hunters? But it doesn't make sense. Even if it's the unicorn demon king, would those origin-level bounty hunters allow him to ride on their heads? Look, that creature is clearly having a great time riding up there. For a while, speculations about the identity of the humanoid figure accompanying the bounty hunters were rampant. Only the residents near Ghost Alley maintained silence. They knew who that figure was, but they dared not mention it. They lived near Ghost Alley, and if they angered that young man, who knows what terrifying things might happen. As for why the announcers deliberately obscured his appearance, no one knew. After confirming that there were no survivors from the Devil Association, Lin quickly began scavenging. Regardless of whether it was useful or useless, as long as it could be picked up, Lin, with the idea of making the most of it, picked up everything. After promising to help Little utilize better materials for her tooth repair, Little happily behaved like a child with 20,000 pounds. After Lin finished scavenging, she promised to help him transport all these goods to Ghost Alley. After several hours of busyness, Lin looked at the large bundles of loot in front of him, smilingly extended his hand, and high-fived Little. Everything is packed, so happy. Yes, Lin wiped the sweat from his forehead, hands on hips, smiling like a teenager who had just experienced exercise. Then let's prepare to go back. It's not good to be noticed by other things. Okay. Then Lin immediately felt a tentacle wrapping around his waist from behind, lifting him up. Lin patted the tentacle and said, "Little, don't play, I'm afraid of heights. It's not fun to roll up so high." Little curiously raised her head and said, "Little didn't roll up." Lin's expression stiffened. Then, he instinctively opened his eyes, turned his head, and a huge, malicious female face appeared in his eyes. Lin was confused, swallowed a mouthful of saliva, and said, "It's Auntie. It turns out it's Auntie. Daughter, do you mind if Mom has a private chat with your doctor?" Little vigorously nodded, saying, Mom finally noticed the doctor's excellence, right? Yes, well, Little muttered. In that case, Little is willing to share with Mom. The shaman's skull's smile became even grander. Then, in a state of shock, Lin was lifted by the massive skull with tentacles and taken towards the distant forest with a thunderous sound. Had his little scheme been figured out? Because he couldn't solve the threat of the Devil Association, he wrote a nasty letter and deceitfully lured Little over here. Indeed, no matter how you looked at it, it was quite repulsive. Lin brainstormed anxiously, but the situation was indeed critical, and among all the foolproof solutions, only Little could absolutely resolve this crisis. As for the marriage mentioned earlier, he didn't dwell on it. It was surely a joke, nothing to consider. Lin was in distress. Finally, he suddenly raised his head, and his expression quickly regained composure. Admit it. If that's the case, considering the relationship between him and Little, there's still a high probability that the shaman would spare him. Thinking this, Lin finally turned his head, looked steadfastly at the towering skull with its back to him. "Have you thought it over?" The shaman's skull emitted a sinister and mysterious laughter. Lin raised his head, took a deep breath, pounded his chest with one hand, and earnestly said, "Auntie, I want to apologize to you." Oh? The shaman's skull showed interest. Writing that letter to Little was indeed a bit selfish. Because the situation was critical at the time, I had no choice but to write to her overnight. He earnestly raised 3 fingers, saying, "But I can swear to you that I had no ill intentions. Since the first time I saw Little, I knew she was a very kind and adorable girl, so I cherished this hard-earned friendship. And who wouldn't like such a cute little girl?" Lin's expression was serious, extremely firm, showing no signs of flaws. No choice, because the only way to break through this private chat situation was to continue emphasizing the deep relationship between him and Little, although they had only met for the second time. But with the increased favorability, Little could indeed be considered his close friend. Although the shaman's skull hadn't spoken yet, the system prompt in his ear told Lin that his strategy was definitely effective. It seems you really like my daughter. The shaman's skull's tone became mysterious and cruel. Lin earnestly raised 3 fingers, saying, I like her very much. How could I not? Is this a joke? A joke. At a time like this, try saying you don't like her and see what happens. His attitude significantly changed. The shaman's skull sneered with a serious face and continued, Do you not care that my daughter is just a head, and you don't even know what race we are? Do you dare to be friends with my daughter? The shaman's skull's tone became sinister. Lin's expression quickly returned to calm, entering a state. Auntie, you are mistaken. What does race matter? Form, beauty. True friendship is about seeing the sincere heart hidden beneath the appearance. We have a saying in our tribe. Beautiful exteriors are common. Interesting souls are rare. Even if a creature has the most beautiful appearance, so what? If her heart doesn't match her beautiful exterior, it's all just passing clouds. Because true friendship is never about how the other looks, but about whether you two can spark dazzling sparks. Lin waved his hand, composed and passionate. Moreover, Little doesn't even care that I'm just a tiny human. How could I care about what kind of race Little belongs to? Lin added calmly. Could it be? He really had genuine feelings for her daughter. Now she had to take it seriously. Although she had thought about it before, it seemed unreliable later, especially when she observed the relationship between this guy and her daughter, which seemed like a pure and simple friendship. But now, listening to these words, things seemed to be getting more and more unusual. No, for the sake of her daughter's happiness, if he really wanted to become her son-in-law, she had to scrutinize him. Do you swear that you will treat my daughter well, and not just play around with her? Aunt, your words are quite off. Let's not talk about those sentimental words for now. Do you think if I were just playing around, Auntie would let me off easily? Would you and Uncle let me go? Do you think it's beneficial for me to offend a powerful person like you? Little Zio is a first-tier origin level VIP. The shaman's skull looked at Lin with firm eyes and listened to his reasonable words. Gradually, her heart softened a bit. Could it be that he really developed feelings for her daughter? She hesitated. Indeed, there are no benefits. She blinked and said, But do you think you have the ability to take care of my daughter? Can you make my daughter happy? After all, this guy is so small. Lin closed his eyes and smiled confidently. Aunt, you don't need to worry about this. I'm a professional in this matter. Regardless of Little Zio or even Auntie, I can serve anytime and guarantee that after the experience, you'll leave satisfied and with a smile on your face. The witch god's head looked at the little guy in front of her in shock, and then quickly glanced at her husband far away. After making sure that she was not heard, she flicked her tentacles. Rolled up Lin. Has this guy been so brave since he was a kid? Experience? What kind of experience method? And now he is blatantly trying to take advantage of her. She was really shocked. What a pervert does it take to say this outright? Are you teasing me? Teasing? No. When did I dare to tease you? The experience you just mentioned. What kind of experience is this? The murderous intention in the witch god's head began to spread. Oral care, beauty, skin care and hair care, diet and health. There was a brief silence. An inexplicable atmosphere spread unbridled around. After a few minutes, the sound of resounded throughout the entire sky. Zayak Xiao in the distance was immediately surprised to see that above the mountain, Lin was like a helicopter propeller, being rolled up by a tentacle and moving in a circular motion at an extremely fast speed. Zio jumped up and down in surprise and excitement, saying, Doctor, fly up, fly up. A few minutes later, ding, congratulations to the host for triggering the achievement. Human Windmill, you have gained 200 basic experience. Special achievement, there is a chance to obtain it by spinning yourself at a speed of 500 kilometers per hour in any way without dying. You have obtained permanent attributes. Bonus, resistance to stun +1, agility +5, happiness +10. Although you are not reliable, but since my daughter likes you so much, and also made a promise in front of me, you can date my daughter now. But if you want to marry my daughter, you still need my husband's consent. That's really great. I really want to thank Auntie. Your magnanimity, There was a brief silence. Lin's expression suddenly became hollow. Wait, what did she just say? Marriage? What marriage? Intercourse? What relationship? You are still the first creature in history that wants to date my daughter. Although you are indeed a bit young, what you say is indeed good. You can't judge people by their appearance, you have to look at their heart. I was still a little hesitant, but you have expressed your opinion like this. Auntie is also willing to give you a chance. Wait a minute. Auntie, this is no joke. We just talked about whether to let me go or not. Why did you suddenly pull this off? When it comes to dating and marriage, my relationship with Zayak Xiao is not what you think. What I have been emphasizing just now is the very pure friendship between Xiao and I. It is a very pure kind of relationship. The witch godhead sneered, stretched out a tentacle, and took out a creation from his mouth. The previously recorded conversation between Lin En and Xiao in Wandering Soul Alley was instantly heard inside. Press gently. Jinging. The face has turned into a strange shape. Dr. Xiao, very comfortable. I heard something coming from inside. With those sounds, Lin instantly felt as if someone had hit the back of his head with a sledgehammer, and his head was buzzing. You still want to make excuses? We already have enough evidence about the bad things you did to my daughter. It also shows how extraordinary you are, because it is impossible for a normal creature to still be excited when seeing a headhunter. That's wrong. He rushed over quickly and jumped up to grab the device wrapped in the tentacles of the witch god's head. But the witch god's head closed its eyes and quickly lifted it up, preventing him from grabbing it. Listen to my explanation. Things are not what you think. We didn't do the bad things you thought back then. It's just a very normal maintenance. I was picking out Xiao's ears, really. She smiled slowly and said, I was a little skeptical at first. But seeing you so panicked now, I am more convinced. Auntie, listen to me. Things are really not what you think. If you don't believe it, you can. Young people play a little high. It's normal. You don't have to feel ashamed. But as a mother, I still need to remind you. As for the intimacy between you and my daughter, I don't objection. But after all, my daughter is just a head now. Don't continue to open strange places in the future. When my daughter has a body, you can go deeper. It's not too late. There was a brief silence. Lin grabbed his head like it was split open, banged it against the hill next to it, and let out bursts of inexplicable long and tearful howls. No, why can't I explain it? The witch god's head instantly narrowed its eyes, with murderous intent everywhere. Oh, what you mean is that after you f***ed my girl, you still don't want to admit it. A few minutes after, Mother, are you not satisfied, brother doctor? The little girl hugged her and said softly, no, as long as the daughter is satisfied, the mother is satisfied. I called the little cutie here this time. I want to ask something. Daughter, you have to tell your mother the truth. Daughter, did you and the doctor do anything very high in that alley this morning? Quick, tiny, tell your mother everything about my care for you. Tell her that we are just doing normal things, not those weird behaviors. Xiao glanced at her mother blankly, then turned her head and glanced at Lin En suspiciously. Hi, does it mean happy? Yes, the doctor's skills are really great. It makes Xiao so high. Wait a minute, Xiao, it's not. The tentacles of the witch god's head flicked. A small piece of sticky flesh stuck to Lin's face with a snap like a facehugger, directly interrupting his subsequent words. Lin stared, tearing hard, trying to make a sound, but couldn't. Ears, mouth, nose, the faces have been taken care of by my brother, a doctor, very hard. The picture emerged in her mind of Lin using various tools to help her clean out all the stains inside and outside, and then taking good care of her. It's really very attentive. Every part, even the pores, is carefully scrubbed clean with a lot of bubble-filled liquid. I can't explain it clearly. I really can't explain it clearly now. The loving smile on the head of the witch god became even brighter. She stroked the little head softly and said, Daughter, do you like this doctor? Xiao suddenly nodded vigorously and said, Super, like, the doctor is, very good person. A relationship like mom and dad, marriage or something. Xiao said, marriage. Although I don't quite understand what these two words mean. But although mom and dad occasionally go crazy and pinch each other when they are not crazy, they are still inseparable and have a very good relationship. Could it be that that is what marriage means? If that's the case, Xiao immediately jumped for joy. Xiao wants to have a better relationship with the doctor. Ding. Xiao's favorability towards you plus 30. Forced arranged marriage. Forced selling and penetration. Mom, why are you crying? Xiao stretched out his tentacles curiously and wiped away her tears. Today I finally met a guy my daughter really likes. No matter what, you have to keep him. Because it's really been a long time since I've seen my daughter show such a happy expression like a normal child. I'm only 17 years old. I'm still a minor. I haven't reached the legal age for marriage yet. A drop of blood suddenly floated from that point. Xiao said, it hurts. The head of the witch god quickly said lovingly, be patient. This is the tradition of our Titan family. If you really like a boy, you can sign with him contract. Xiao asked doubtfully, equal contract. Yes, it's a very simple magic to each other. There are not many restrictions, but you will tell other Titans that you already have a very good partner. You are a big girl who can get married at any time. although the Titans have long been dead. Now, Xiao Sao immediately said, is it a symbol of a very good relationship? Yes, it is a grown-up symbol. Xiao Sao was happy. She said, well, Xiao Sao is very willing. Will Dr. Brother be willing? Brother Doctor, are you crying? Xiao Sao was curious. They are tears of emotion. He is also very willing. Following a strange fluctuation, Lin En immediately felt that there seemed to be some indescribable connection between him and Xiao Xiao. It's like telepathy, or some kind of strange link. You can clearly feel the heartbeat of the other person and the distance between them. At the same time, an ancient cross pattern slowly appeared on his forehead. It flashed by and quickly disappeared under the flesh, and the system prompts came to his ears instantly. Ding, you have signed a spiritual contract with Xiao Sao, and you have obtained permanent additions. The reputation of the Titan clan has been increased to friendly, the favorability of the witch god's head +30, and all attributes +10. The tradition from the ancient Titan clan ceremony can make the two parties who sign the contract become more in tune with each other. According to the custom of the Titan tribe, on the annual celebration day, giants who have a crush on each other will request the one they like to sign a contract. If you agree, it means that you can get to know each other more deeply, and if suitable, you can form an eternal partner in the future and be blessed by the Titan gods. Ding, congratulations on triggering the epic achievement. Titan Lover, you have gained 200 basic experience. The epic achievement can be obtained when you have a Titan of the same or opposite sex who has signed a spiritual contract with you. This means as you head towards the point of no return of driving a big car, you gain permanent additional layers. Little good trust +30, mental power +10, and physical fitness +10. This is marriage. The godly head chuckled affectionately. No, this is just a mark that allows you to understand each other better. Of course, if one day you feel it's not suitable, it can be erased. If after a long time, there is no absolute dislike for each other, then it's the true mark of marriage. She smiled particularly happily, like a mother watching her daughter grow up. Too fast. This series of processes is really too fast. It was so fast that he couldn't react, so fast that he didn't know how to explain the current situation. And from the moment the godly head covered his mouth, he realized that she must have known that this was a misunderstanding a long time ago. She was deliberately pretending to be confused. How strong must the obsession be to be so eager to marry off her own daughter? No, he must find an opportunity to explain the twists, and turns to the little one clearly. Otherwise, it would really be troublesome. Still blissfully unaware of the little one, happily placed Lin on his head, turned his head to look at his mother, and said, Mother, can we go now? The godly head smiled affectionately. Yes, you can, he. Finally, one obsession in her heart was fulfilled. Evening. Black mist billowed. On the edge of a small mountain in the desolate wilderness, Lin sat dejectedly, accompanied by a curious little one. Seemingly seeing Lin's frustration, the little one extended a tentacle and gently poked Lin's shoulder. Doctor, are you unhappy? Lin raised his head, gazing emptily into the distance, saying, How can I be happy like this? It's so sudden. I don't even have the opportunity to speak. I signed that kind of laborious contract with you, little one. I'm sorry, the little one said. I thought the doctor also wanted to improve the relationship with little one. Helplessly, Lin hung his head. He knew this had nothing to do with the little one. Although the little one was powerful, her mentality seemed still very young and easily influenced. Lin said in frustration, It's not that I don't want to deepen our relationship, it's just, little one, do you know what marriage is? The little one blinked and said, It's like mom and dad, better playmates and friends. Lin smiled bitterly and said, No, marriage is a sacred thing. It means spending a lifetime with each other, accumulating a long period of feelings, and making sacred vows. The little one looked puzzled, not quite understanding. The evening breeze blew. Lin sighed and shook his head. How could the little one understand? Although she was gigantic, by the standards of giants, she was still a child, right? In Lin's mind, the introduction on the small panel of the little one's parents suddenly sounded. A head fallen from a higher world, living with resentment and curses. War, death, titans. Lin stared blankly ahead, his gaze falling on the little one's confused and pure face. Was it a titan whose head was cut off? And what about the little one? Did she also have her head cut off at that node 3,000 years ago and fell from a higher world to this hell? If that's the case, little one, can I ask you a question? How old are you? The little one bounced and caused an earthquake, saying, Dad said I'm 5, Mom said I'm 3005, I don't remember. Lin was shaken. 5 years old. he murmured. Could it be? Have you always been without a body? Or just here? The little one said, it seems to remember there was a long time ago. Then suddenly there wasn't. Too long ago. Can't remember. Lin sat there dazed. Could it be? When she was 5 years old, the little one had her head cut off. In the war they experienced. Then fell, finally became the present headhunter, a root-level creature. In an instant, Lin felt an indescribable chill creeping up from the bottom of his heart. If even children were not spared, what they experienced back then was probably a true war of genocide. The little one looked at Lin's cheek curiously and said, Doctor, what's wrong again? Are you unhappy again? Lin raised his head, stood up from the ground, and the evening wind blew the scattered hair in front of his forehead. A smile appeared on his face. Nothing. He patted the dust off his body. Just suddenly thought of something. He turned his head, smiled, and reached out his hand to the little one, suddenly asking, Little one, do you want to change back to the appearance with a body? The little one, puzzled but excited, said, Huh. Lin smiled and opened his arms, saying, Yes, like me, not just a head, but other parts too. Do you want? If you do, I can help you. The little one suddenly became excited. Really, can I? Really? Although it's only a very short hour, it's enough. Lin slowly reached out his right hand to her, a smile spreading. Because I also want to see what the real little one looks like. Wasteland? What? You let your daughter sign a soul contract with that guy? The Titan's head extended massive tendrils in a fit of rage, aiming directly at the goddess's head. The goddess's head sneered and confronted him with malice, saying, So what? Since it's a creature my daughter likes, I'll keep it no matter what. Hearing this news, the Titan's head almost went insane. He glared fiercely, his expression increasingly ferocious, cruelly addressing her, You're simply a madwoman. My daughter is only 5 years old. How dare you? You're challenging my limits. The goddess's head stood like a mountain, coldly replying, Hey, we've been dead for 3,000 years. Don't act like it's still the past. If you hadn't lost, my daughter wouldn't have come down to suffer. My poor child, beheaded at the age of 5. She's so young, she doesn't understand anything. It's all because of you, this useless thing. Now you dare to come and criticize me. I'm going to kill that human now, he roared, and his colossal head instantly rammed the goddess's head dozens of meters away. He angrily stared into the night. His head, like Mount Tai, headed in the direction of Lin and the others. Behind him, rumbling, one after another, snake-like tendrils shot out and entwined around his head. You dare to attack me. The Titan's head was furious, eyes wild. The goddess's head, malicious and ruthless, controlled the tendrils, saying, You useless waste, do you really think you're our daughter? Or that 5-year-old child from back then? If it weren't for you, my daughter would have grown up and become an excellent Titan. I tell you, if you dare to interfere with my daughter's preferences today, I'll tear you into shreds. A large piece of flesh was torn off, swallowed down by her. The Titan's head, infuriated and embarrassed, eyes even more frenzied, like a madman, instantly shattered the tentacles that bound him into countless fleshy fragments. You madwoman, it's all because of you. Curse, you make me restless. You deserve to die. Splurt, splurt. His gigantic tentacles pierced into the goddess's head's eye sockets, crushing her eyeballs into bloody water. But the goddess's head seemed to feel no pain. She crazily devoured his head. Ha ha ha, hee hee. You useless thing, the crazier you get, the more useless you become. No matter how angry you are, you can't go back to the past. Ha ha, you're just a twisted monster. She laughed maliciously. The clarity in their eyes quickly became chaotic under the influence of malice, but they seemed never to die. The fleshy bits they had bitten off healed at a visible speed, and with each healing, the curse grew stronger. The Titan's head suddenly turned and ferociously headed in the direction of Lin and others. Ha ha ha, hee hee, you useless waste. Ha ha ha, all you know is useless rage. Ha ha. Once again, one after another, tentacles shot out from behind him, firmly holding him back. But the Titan's head no longer wanted to pay attention to the madwoman behind him. He dragged the head that sneered at him behind him, angrily moving forward step by step. Die, everyone must die. At the same time, on the hill, the evening wind gently blew Lin's forehead hair. He smiled and extended 5 fingers toward Little. Little, if you're ready, relax your mind. Only if you believe in me and don't guard against me, can I perform that spell. Little nervously said, Can it really be done? She was anxious but also somewhat expectant. Lin smiled. I believe I can do it. Let's begin. His expression instantly became serious, concentrating all his spiritual power on Little. Out of sympathy or perhaps pity. Suddenly, he felt that even though she was just an ignorant girl full of curiosity, why did such an unfair fate fall upon her? She probably didn't know anything. She might still be in a dream. She was suddenly beheaded for no reason, fell into this dark hell, and became a monster no one dared to approach. In an instant, countless fine lights spread in Lin's eyes. The introduction of that legendary skill also emerged in his mind, although it only lasts for an hour, and perhaps even shorter because the opponent is a source-level being. If it can really bring back the little of that year, even if it's not eternal, it's still a kind of comfort. The glaring light almost instantly enveloped the figure of Little in front of them. The massive head emitted a faint glow, tearing through the pitch-black night covered in dark mist. In this dark and gloomy atmosphere, it resembled a radiant curtain tearing through the night, instantly illuminating the surrounding darkness. Meanwhile, in the distance, the Titan head, driven mad by anger and gradually advancing towards this place, also saw the surging and enormous light curtain. It was as dazzling as sunlight, as magnificent as time itself, as if, in an instant, they had returned to the upper world, with the sun hanging high in the sky, casting a warm light over their bodies. The Titan head came to a stunned halt. His entire face was illuminated by the grandeur of the light. At the same moment the light curtain appeared, the witch god's head, standing behind him, also stood there dumbfounded, unable to utter a single word. In the dark world, there was no warm light. There was only eternal and unchanging black mist and a sky filled with deathly stillness. The only glimmer one could see was the dimly flickering soul lamp in the black mist, burning with the suffering brought by souls and blood. Never before had there been a moment like this. It was as if genuine sunlight had descended into this pitch-black hell. But at this moment, they saw light, the dazzling and magnificent light. As the huge beam of light scattered, countless points of light gradually vanished into the air. It was in that light that a figure they were incredibly familiar with, one they missed dearly, and even shed tears every time they thought about it, appeared before their eyes like an illusion. That is, the Titan head's pupils trembled. His unrestrained and boundless rage, at the moment his gaze met that figure, instantly collapsed. "Daughter," the witch god's head murmured lifelessly. At some point, a row of crystal-clear teardrops, along the grotesque and bloody cheeks, dripped onto the ground, making a ticking sound. The light faded away. Just in front of the small hill, a pair of sparkling and translucent emerald eyes opened, as if waking from a dream, sitting on the hill with a confused expression, gazing at the miniature Lin in front of her. She lowered her head in surprise, looking at her delicate hands, looking at her long and fair legs and feet. Real. Little widened her bright green eyes in astonishment, jumped up in joy, and exclaimed, "I have a body now. It's amazing. It's really amazing." Boom. With this jump, the half of the small hill almost collapsed. This she, the Little from 3,000 years ago. Despite being enormous, her body proportions were unexpectedly perfect and coordinated. Moreover, she clearly hadn't reached maturity. Judging by her features, she didn't differ much from a scaled-up human little girl. And she was really beautiful, exquisitely beautiful. Although her face retained a childish charm, anyone could see that if she grew up, she would become an exceptionally beautiful girl. Doctor. Little was almost overwhelmed with joy. She quickly sat down and wed to the miniature Lin standing on the hill, expressing her delight. "Amazing. You are truly amazing. Little has her own body now." She enthusiastically spread her arms and cheered. Then, reaching out her hands, joyfully she lifted the miniature Lin, hugging him tightly against her chest, like cuddling a beloved doll. She rubbed her face against him with force. Woo, so amazing. Doctor is truly incredible. I really am excited. Little was extremely happy. A second stage epic achievement. When the trust level of a rooted class creature exceeds 100, and the goodwill surpasses 500, there is a small probability of advancement when gaining trust, indicating that you have acquired a rooted intimate friend in the dark world. You gained a permanent attribute bonus, all attributes plus 20, Little's goodwill towards you plus 50. Before Lin could react, Little couldn't hold back her excitement. She stretched out her tongue and affectionately licked Lin like a little cat. Lick, so fond of the doctor. The doctor is amazing. Woo, really, I like it so much. In just a few licks, Lin was left moist. Obviously, despite temporarily reverting to her original appearance, the habits of expressing intimacy developed over these years between monsters were still unchanged. And Lin hadn't expected this. The original Little turned out to be so adorable. Wait, Little, don't lick for now. Listen to me first. Lick, wet, my whole body is soaked. I'm really dirty, covered in dust. Lick. Why does it seem to get more energetic the more you lick? Lick. In the distance, the Titan head and the witch god's head stood side by side, staring dumbfoundedly at the scene. The wounds left on their heads from the recent bloody battle quickly healed under the effects of the curse. "Is this our daughter?" the witch god's head murmured. At this moment, the enraged Titan head, for the first time in a while, lost his usual anger. His lips moved dazedly, staring at the little figure so familiar from memories. In that moment, in his chaotic mind, scenes from before his defeat surfaced once again. Amidst the flying flames and ashes that burned through the tribe, he helplessly watched his daughter awaken in a daze, only to have her head cut off before him. And he was so close at that time. She was so young, and she had no connection to that war. Yet, from that moment, the endless burning anger became a curse that drove him mad for 3,000 years. Most of the time, he was in chaos, because whenever he woke up and saw his daughter, still as innocent and happy as before, he would think of that scene from the past, the moment the blood-red blade swung down. He had been living in that night of flying war flames, so he never wanted to acknowledge the subsequent years, didn't want to admit the journey of 3,000 years in hell, didn't want to face the present. Because in his memory, his daughter had always been that young, always the sensible child who would leap into his arms in the morning and affectionately call him daddy. In an instant, tears, mixed with hot emotions, flowed from his chaotic eyes like a house-sized mess. Even his nose started running. Is it an illusion? Yes, it must be an illusion. It must be the chaos brought by the curse, making him unclear once again. But if he could maintain this current scene, he would rather never be clear again, forever living in the curse brought by chaos, seemingly sensing their presence. The little lowly, holding Lin like a small mountain, twitched her ears, then turned her head in confusion, looking in their direction. The moment their gazes met, the Titans and the gods' heads shivered, even their breathing stopped. And in the next moment, the golden-haired little lowly's eyes lit up. A highlight appeared. Daddy, Mommy. She quickly jumped up from the ground, hugged Lin, and joyfully cheered, running towards them. And when she shouted those 4 words, both the Titans and the gods' heads couldn't help but burst into tears and runny noses. Daughter, our daughter. The next moment, the little one joyfully hugged both heads, closed her eyes, and pressed her cheek against theirs, as if, in an instant, she returned to many, many years ago, in the distant memories that had become blurred. It seemed that such scenes would happen every day, peaceful, carefree, and worry-free. In an instant, feeling the warmth of their daughter's cheek, feeling her real body, the Titans and the gods' heads couldn't help but burst into tears. It was a remnant of the past. It was also a bond of affection brought by time and curse. In this hell, in this dark and mysterious world, they even forgot what they looked like in their past lives. But why? Why could they remember this child in front of them so clearly? Clear, no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't forget. Crying loudly, crying out loud, hugging tightly for a long time. Even Lin, who had been held in front, was squeezed in the middle, although the excessive size made Lin afraid of being crushed to death. But lifting his head and seeing the small parents crying tears of joy, he felt a slight comfort in his heart. 10 minutes later, Little sat on the ground, blinked, hugged Lin to her chest. Little lifted Lin, happily rubbing her face against his. It's Dr. Lin who gave Little a body. Really, it's like a miracle, super amazing. In an instant, Titan's head asked seriously, full of doubt. Lin raised his head, coughed, and said, "It's not that amazing. It's just an ability I was born with, the ability to recreate past things. After I roughly understood Little's situation, I just tried it casually, and I didn't expect it to be successful." He raised his head, looked at the heads that were bowing and blinking at him, blushed, coughed, and said, "Sorry, I didn't expect Little to be so cute in the past." Stare, stare. Lin suddenly felt two terrifying gazes piercing him. Lin widened his eyes, swallowed, and raised his hands. "I was just talking nonsense." The Titan's head still looked a bit skeptical, a bit unbelievable, because it was simply unimaginable. In his eyes, this guy was just a slightly talented and weak human. Apart from flirting with his daughter, he had almost no advantages. But he really didn't expect that this guy would have such a strange ability. Can it be maintained continuously? Titan's head found a key point. Lin raised a finger seriously. 1 hour, that's my current limit. Even though he had guessed that this ability could never be permanent, a whole hour still exceeded his expectations. Because in this dark world, they were almost the top-tier creatures. Titan's head said seriously, "Your ability, what's it called?" Lin closed his eyes and said, "Past reminiscence." Titan's head murmured those 4 words. Past reminiscence. It seemed like a fitting name. Was it for the ability to reproduce the past for those who had died? His gaze towards Lin became complicated. Just a superficial appearance, no real change, right? Lin raised his head, locked eyes with him, and said, "Yes." There was a hint of sadness in Titan's head's gaze. Lin knew what he was thinking. But that was absolutely impossible. because that meant reversing time, meant reversing life and death, and that was something he couldn't do. Even if this skill could really do it, it would definitely come at a considerable cost. And his past reminiscence was just a reproduction of the past, a real illusion. Under the illusion's appearance, nothing changed. Little was still the Origins headhunter. She still had her head cut off. Silence surrounded them. Suddenly, Lin felt Little's hand move, and then she put him in her palm and lifted him to her face, even being able to see her lake-like blue eyes up close. She blinked at Lin. "Like you," she suddenly said mischievously. Lin was first stunned. Then he saw the pure and lively gaze. Lin smiled slightly, leaned against her hand, and raised a big thumb to her, showing his white teeth. "Same." Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Stop. Stop." Lin suddenly panicked. "Little, you have to understand that when I say same, it's just a liking between normal friends, without any other things mixed in. It's just pure liking between good friends. Do you understand?" Little looked at Lin with an expression and said, "Understand." For a long time, Lin finally eased out of the small, suffocating embrace, took a breath, and wiped the cold sweat from his forehead. No, this situation, developing in an abnormal direction, must be immediately brought under control. Although she was indeed 3,005 years old, but she was still a very small lowly. Certain things were unacceptable, or at least they shouldn't be. Just as Lin was contemplating a solution, a tentacle poked him from behind. The Titan's head squinted its eyes, like the head of a majestic lion, and said solemnly, "Since you can temporarily change my daughter back to her original appearance, can you also?" His expression slowly began to look somewhat unnatural. Lin stared, froze, and didn't dare to move. Snap. Before he could finish speaking, a tentacle behind him smacked him several meters away. Looking at the Titan's head smoking above, he couldn't say a word. Useless thing, asking for help and still being wishy-washy. Arrogant, really throwing face away. In an instant, the god's head, taking the place of the Titan's head, transformed its face like magic into an incredibly gentle and friendly smile. But because the entire face was too terrifying, smiling made it even more eerie. The god's head covered its mouth with a tentacle, like a reserved lady, looking at Lin with eyes full of praise and laughter. Lin was sweating, and his sanity dropped. "I knew. I didn't read you wrong. Our son-in-law, you are unexpectedly outstanding." Lin widened his eyes and said, Auntie." The god's head covered its mouth, and said, "Why still call me Auntie? How impolite. You should change it, like Little does. Call me Mommy. Calling Mommy is more intimate." Ha ha. Lin sat dazedly on Little's leg, opened his mouth, but couldn't say a word. In his mind, he once again saw the scene of being tossed into the air. Did things really change this quickly? Lin sighed, rubbed his temples, and said, "I'd better call you Auntie for now. Auntie, do you want me to help you like I did with Little, to recreate the past?" As soon as these words were spoken, the god's head's smile became even more pronounced, covering its mouth. No, how can a mother-in-law ask her son-in-law to do things? That's too immodest. Hey. Then she leaned over suddenly, her huge eyes almost approaching Lin within a meter, and said seriously, "Can we do it now?" Lin, dumbfounded, "Oh, okay." 10 seconds later, Lin stood in the palm of Little's hand, looking seriously at the slightly nervous and uneasy god's head. He reached out and said solemnly, "Auntie, first, you have to understand that my ability has significant limitations. Although the consumption of mental power won't cause me to overdraw, there's a crucial condition. You have to completely let go of your guard against me. Otherwise, with your power, as long as there's even a slight conflict, this ability won't work." The god's head was slightly tense, saying, "I'm prepared." Lin nodded seriously. Seeing the somewhat tense god's head, Lin took a deep breath and let go of his hand. "Auntie, you're still too resistant to me. Relax a bit. Don't treat me as someone you dislike or a creature that poses a threat to you. Otherwise, I really can't succeed." The god's head thought for a moment, then looked determined and said, "Now, it's ready." Why did it increase? "I really can't help you like this." Lin was anxious. The god's head thought for a moment, then seriously said, "Wait a moment, let me adjust my state." Then, under Lin's gaze, the god's head turned around, murmured a few words, and took a dozen deep breaths. Then she turned her head, looked at Lin seriously, and said, "Now, can we?" Just as she hadn't finished her words, she covered her forehead with a tentacle, turned her head in a frown, and murmured, "No, still not ready. I automatically equate you with the scumbag who deceived my daughter when I see you. I can't do it." Lin, for a long time, just when Lin was about to give up in frustration, the god's head suddenly focused, saying, "I've thought of a solution." Snap. Under Lin's astonished gaze, the god's head solemnly extended a tentacle and turned the tip of that tentacle into a biscuit-like shape, resembling a pocket watch. She flicked it, Then that pocket watch began to swing in front of her eyes. Could it be? Lin stood up in astonishment. The god's head, with serious eyes, followed the swinging pocket watch in front of her, saying, "I used to be the strongest priestess of the Titan clan. Hypnosis was my expertise. Wait a moment, let me erase the bias against you in my heart. It'll be done soon." Then Lin heard her muttering words. "He is my friendly and harmless son-in-law. He is not the scumbag who kidnapped my daughter. He is not a shameless and perverted lolicon. He is not the jerk who likes to drive big cars. I never thought of dismembering him, swallowing him alive, peeling his skin, drinking his blood, or turning him into a doll." Lin sat dazedly, listening to the various tortures directed at him. All in all, he counted 121 different ways. Was it that malicious? It seemed that if it weren't for Little's relationship, it wouldn't have been easy for him to survive. After several minutes, initiate. The god's head narrowed her eyes solemnly, and a purple halo emitted from her eyes. She immediately closed her eyes, and all her tentacles drooped down. Thank you for watching. Subscribe and enable notifications so you don't miss the next chapter.